adventures of Rocky and Bullwinkle and Friends. Starring the Jet-A Jerry O'Lace, Rocket J. Squirrel, and his pal, Bullwinkle the Moose.
Hi, glad to see you again.
Likewise.
We got some great things on the show today.
Like what? Like what?
Well, you ought to know, Bullwinkle. You're in some of them.
Well, let's get started.
While it looks as though the three Musketeers, Rocky, Bullwinkle, and Athos, are finally getting close to discovering the whereabouts of the king of Applesauce Lorraine.
Look what it says in Francois Villain's diary. Tomorrow I will go to the king.
But unfortunately, the king Francois Villain went to was the King Theater.
Goody, goody, a Mickey Mouse cartoon.
It was a moose, all right, but the wrong one. Bullwinkle was taken back to Villain's castle and condemned to the guillotine. It looked as though the show would be minus a moose.
Stop! I'm the spy you want.
And then it looked as though we'd be minus a flying squirrel.
What's coming off here, Rock?
His head in exactly 3 seconds. Ready? Aim. Drop.
The razor-sharp blade hurtled downward, only to strike the back of Rocky's neck and hurtle upward. Then down again, then upward.
What is going on? That blade acts as if it was made of rubber.
Which is just what it was, for Rocky had switched blades the night before.
Very well. If I can't kill you, I will put you away. Take him to Chateaubriand.
Dear Bullwinkle, don't try to rescue me. I have a hunch Chateaubriand is where the king is being held. Repeat, don't rescue me.
And at that moment, the cart carrying our wee hero came clattering over the cobblestone street.
Chin up, Rock!
Here, Bullwinkle, catch!
Oh, he's got spunk. Playing with paper airplanes at a time like this.
Alas, Bullwinkle was unaware that that paper airplane was the note Rocky had just written.
See, that gives me an idea.
Rushing to the top of a high cliff, Bullwinkle hastily constructed a large version of the paper airplane.
I will swoop down and pluck that plucky squirrel right off that cart.
But Aramus, that paper airplane will not stay in the air.
I don't see why not. I made it out of fly paper.
With that, he took off and disappeared over the edge. Surprisingly enough, the plane flew. Not only that, but Athos stared in amazement when the plane, its pilot, and a passenger came soaring back to the top of the cliff.
I got him, Athos! I got him!
You got him, all right. You got the driver of the cart.
Undismayed, Bullwinkle made a second attempt.
I got him this time!
You sure have. You got the horse.
I thought he looked kind of big for a squirrel. Well, if at first you don't proceed.
Certain that the third time would be the charm, he took off again. But alas, by now the cart carrying Rocky had rolled downhill and through the main gate of the infamous Chateaubriand. As for Bullwinkle, he did bring someone back to the top of the cliff.
Who is it this time?
I don't know. Claims his name is Lindbergh. I'll try again.
No, the squirrel is already inside the chateau.
Well, let us get him out.
Oui. Now listen. Here is what we will do.
Rocky, meanwhile, had been thrown into Chateaubriand's deepest dungeon and was contemplating his fate.
First I gotta find the king, then I gotta get a message out to Bullwinkle.
Psst. Rock!
Hi, Bullwinkle. Then I gotta think of a way to... Bullwinkle, I thought I told you not to rescue me.
But it wasn't a rescue, for Athos' plan to gain access to the prison was to bribe a guard.
Only the guard turned out to be me, Francois Villain.
Thus, the three Musketeers found themselves together again, but in a most hopeless situation. And as if that wasn't bad enough, suddenly the walls of the cell began to tremble. Was it an earthquake? We'll find out next time in That's the Way the Cookie Crumbles, or Me and My Chateau.
Once upon a time, there was an old woodcutter who lived in the woods.
I like to be near my work, you know what I mean?
And this old woodcutter had 2 children named Felicia and Bruno. One day, he told them that it was time for them to make their own way in the world.
It's time for you to make your own way in the world, kids.
We know.
But before you go, I want to give each of you a gift.
Wild?
For you, Bruno, a chicken.
Gee, Dad, it's a leghorn.
And for you, Felicia, a pot of pinks. They're small gifts, to be sure.
You can say that again.
But one of them is magic.
Which one?
I forgot. Well, have a nice trip, kids.
Bye, Dad.
Right if you get rich.
And the 2 children set out to make their way in the world.
What are you going to do with a pot of pinks, if that's what they are?
What are you going to do with a miserable chicken?
Obviously, you haven't made the fairy story scene. What I undoubtedly have here is a magic chicken that lays golden eggs. Stand back. She's going to lay one right now. There you see? A golden egg.
Doesn't look gold to me.
Yes, sir, a golden egg. Oh, it's the gracious life for me from now on.
Looks like a regular egg.
Jaguars, Brooks Brothers suits, winters in Jamaica.
Regular chicken egg.
There you'll be sniffing your pot of pinks while I'm dining at 21, even 22. But that's fairy stories, yes, sirree. Whoops.
Yes, sirree. That's fairy stories.
I'll go sniff your pinks, if that's what they are.
But when Felicia turned to sniff the pinks, she saw they were drooping.
Oh, dear.
So she took a pitcher down to the lake to get some water for them. But no sooner had she started to fill it than a tree by the side of the lake suddenly changed into a beautiful lady.
Wow! Do that again.
All righty.
That's sensational.
Well, that's fairy stories.
I wish my brother could see that. He's a nut for that kind of thing, you know, witches, magic, and like that.
Meanwhile, back at the chicken,
You're not magic. You're nothing but a stupid Plymouth Rock. You're no better than a crummy pot of pinks that... Hey! If you're not magic, it must be the pot of pinks that's magic. I should have knowed. With a dizzy name like pot of pinks. No comments.
so Bruno stole the pot of pinks and substituted a cabbage in its place. A short time later, Felicia returned with the pitcher of water.
Wow, you really were thirsty, weren't you?
Felicia, I don't know how to tell you this, but that isn't a pot of pinks.
No?
No, it's a cabbage. Your brother has the real pot of pinks, if that's what they are.
Well, aren't you going to do something magic to get him back?
No, the only trick I can do is to change from a lady to a tree and vice versa.
Well, that's fairy stories.
But when Felicia set the cabbage down on the ground,
Ouch! Watch out there, that hurt there.
Who said that?
I did there.
That's all I need, a talking cabbage.
Such a bump you gave me there.
Well, I'm sorry. But being a cabbage, you got to expect a certain amount of rough treatment. I mean, I didn't make the rules.
But listen, I'm not an ordinary talking cabbage. I'm different there.
I know. You can turn yourself into a handsome prince.
Oh, anybody can do that. Frogs, donkeys. Now, what I do is unique. A whole new bit there.
So what's your bit?
I lay golden eggs.
Oh, ridiculous. If you expect me to stay around and listen to anything so far-fetched,
What'll you do?
I'll turn back into a tree.
and she did.
But I'm not kidding. I feel a golden egg coming on now. Oh, cluck, cluck. Cluck, cluck there.
Well, the cabbage began to hop around strangely, and would you believe it, actually laid a golden egg.
Wow! Would you do that again?
No.
Why not? I think that's wonderful.
Well, to tell you the truth, it's the first time I ever did it, and I don't like it a bit there.
Oh.
But I will tell you how to get your pot of pinks back, if that's what they are.
How?
Just take that golden egg and...
Meanwhile, Bruno was trying to coax magic out of Felicia's pinks.
Come on, Pinks, if that's what you are. Just one little trick.
Bruno, those are my pinks.
We traded. Take your chicken and get out of here.
Do I take the golden egg, too?
Sure, take the golden egg.
Yeah, see?
Here's your pot of pinks. Give me my chicken.
I thought we traded.
We didn't shake hands on it.
So Felicia took back a pot of pinks and watered it tenderly. And as she did, a strange thing happened. The pot of pinks turned into a handsome prince.
Kind maiden, will you marry me?
Oh, Your Highness.
Just call me Pinky.
So Felicia and the prince were wed, and Bruno, well, he was so insistent that the chicken really did start laying golden eggs.
Anything to stop him from bugging me.
So they all lived happily ever after, which just goes to show the power of positive thinking.
Or as we call it, the power of positive pinking.
Well, that's fairy stories.
Tonight, Clubhouse 90 presents She Can't Pay the Rent, written and directed by Ingmar Bedinoff. Bullwinkle, is dress rehearsal already? Why can't you remember lines?
I remember the lines, okay? It's them pesky words that's giving me trouble.
Well, maybe if you ran through the part yourself, Ingmar, then Bullwinkle might remember it better.
Say, it's a pretty good idea. Let's run through it. Places. Action.
Is cold. No food for baby. No fuel for fire. Come in.
I've come to collect rent.
But I can't pay it.
But you must pay rent.
You see how tricky them lines are?
But I have no money.
Well, maybe we can make arrangement. What do you say, Toots?
Oh, cruel fate. Oh, woe is me.
I'll pay the rent. Curses foiled again. All right, you got it, Bullwinkle?
Sure.
Okay, from the top.
He's cold. No food for baby. No fuel for fire. No fuel. No fuel. What have you come for?
Well, I heard you was out of fuel, so I brought some. And some baby food, too. Goody, 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 goody.
Cut it out!
Didn't you come to collect rent?
Oh, yeah, I come to collect the rent.
But I can't pay the rent.
Well, that's okay. Forget it.
I'll pay the rent.
He went the other way.
Mr. Villain, sir, the rent, the rent.
Boo, boo, boo!
Hello again, Peabody and Sherman here.
Hi, and this is Mr. Peabody's invention, the Wayback Machine.
Correct, Sherman. And now it's time to be on our way. You may set the Wayback Machine for the year 1842.
Got it. And the place?
The rugged plains of New Mexico, where we will join a wagon train that is moving west, being led by none other than that hunter and scout, Kit Carson. In no time at all, Sherman and I were teleported back to the wagon train, but instantly I sensed that something was wrong. The wagon train was not moving.
Gosh, Mr. Peabody, what do you think the trouble is?
We soon found out. For a short distance away, we saw Kit Carson sitting on the ground facing a group of savage-looking Indians. As we approached the group, I was able to see that Mr. Carson seemed lost in thought.
Now, let's see. Was it? No, that's not it. Maybe... No, that's not it either.
Without seeming to pry, may I ask if you've forgotten there's a wagon train waiting for you?
Nope, I remember. Now, let's see.
The Indians don't mind your passing through their territory, do they?
No, it's fine with them.
Then why don't you go back to the wagon train so you can get started again?
'Cause I plumb forgot.
Forgot what?
How to say goodbye in Injun. That's what. And Injuns get real mad when you don't say goodbye to them. Makes them go on the warpath. Just like that. Ain't that right, boys? See?
Gee, then that's why you've been sitting here all this time.
Right. I've been speaking Injun man and boy for 40 years. But goodbye is one word I just can't remember.
This is a serious problem, but if you'll step this way, I may be able to help. Being an authority on all Indian dialects, I, of course, knew the word Mr. Carson was searching for. The word for goodbye in this case, I believe, is we gonna cut.
What was that again?
We gonna cut.
Yahoo! That's it! Tarnation if you haven't saved the day, Mr.
Peabody is the name.
Well, I can't hold that against you. Wait here. I'll go tell them goodbye so we can be on our way.
With that, Kit Carson rushed back to the Indians. However...
Well, boys, adios. No, that ain't it. So long. Excuse me a minute. What was that word once more?
We gonna cut.
It's no use, Mr. Beanbody.
Peabody's the name.
Yeah, but I just can't remember that word.
By now, it was quite apparent that Mr. Carson, though being long on hair, was very short on memory. Instructing Sherman to wait, I took him back to the wagon train to find some paper so I could write the elusive word down for him. But no sooner had we gone when...
This sure seems like a lot of trouble to go to. If it was up to me, I'd just tell the Indians ta-ta and be done with it.
What you just say?
Why, I just said ta-ta.
That's what we thought you said.
We were very much under attack by very mad Indians.
Mr. Peabody! Mr. Peabody!
Can you explain this, Sherman?
Yes. I don't know. All I said was ta-ta.
I suspected as much. You see, Sherman, ta-ta means let's have a war to these Indians.
We'll never get to California now.
I think you might. For you see, I, as always, have a plan. Having the members of the wagon train lay down their guns, I then led them in a rousing chorus of Happy Birthday.
Happy, happy birthday. Happy, happy birthday. Happy, happy birthday.
Naturally, the Indians, thinking it was their birthday, stopped shooting and came into the circle of wagons to get their presents.
Sure have to hand it to you. That was pretty smart, Mr. Prunebody.
That is Peabody, sir, and I suggest you look through these wagons to find some presents for these happy souls.
Right, and I know just the thing. We got a whole wagon load of musical instruments that we don't need. They can have the whole kit and caboodle.
The Indians were so pleased with their gifts, they forgot all about not being said goodbye to. And the wagon train, led by Kit Carson, moved out and headed west.
Well, there they go. It's sure a lucky thing Kit Carson had that wagon load of musical instruments to give the Indians.
Quite right. And by doing so, he started quite a fad. For it wasn't long before all Indians took up the practice of carrying musical instruments wherever they went.
You're kidding!
Why, I never kid, Sherman. You know very well there was hardly a pioneer that crossed the plains that didn't see a band of Indians.
Our plot has reached such a state of confusion that I think I'll let our cast try and explain it.
Well, I, Rocky, or Porthole,
You see what I mean?
am inside Chateaubriand's dankest dungeon.
And I, Bullwinkle, alias Aramus, am outside Chateaubriand trying to rescue Rocky.
Yes, but I, Rocky, don't want to be rescued until I find out where the king of applesauce Lorraine is.
Yes, but I, Bullwinkle, don't know that.
What about you, Athos?
I, Athos, have a splitting headache.
Well, that's understandable, for it was the aging musketeer's idea to bribe a guard and gain access to the chateau. Only the guard turned out to be Francois Villain.
All three of you will stay in there until you rot.
It got progressively rottener, for just as we closed our preceding installment, the walls of the cell began to tremble.
Hokey smokes, it feels like an earthquake.
Quick, do something.
I've got an idea.
What?
Let's do the recap over and change the plot so that we're somewhere in the South Pacific.
But there was no time to do that, for suddenly a section of the far wall crashed to the floor in a million pieces.
Look, fellas, a passageway.
They entered the dim, cobwebby corridor, only to discover it led to 3 more corridors.
Oh, fine. Now we gotta make a choice.
I say, let's take the one on the left, right?
I prefer the one in the middle.
Tell you what, we'll each take one. Maybe one of us can find the king and a way out of here.
It sounded like the right thing to do. However, there were complications. Take Bullwinkle, for instance. His corridor led to a long flight of steps that came to a dead end.
Looks like I've reached an impasse.
Actually, it was a wall, but luck was with him, for on the other side was a huge picture of the Cathedral of Notre Dame. It was a simple matter to open one of the doors, come downstairs, and continue his search. Athos faced a similar problem, for his corridor led to the brink of a 200-foot drop. But although the corridor stopped, Athos didn't. Strangely enough, what he fell into was Chateaubriand's indoor pool. And instead of the guards grabbing him, they applauded him.
Beautiful dive, monsieur.
C'est magnifique!
Athos emerged from the water, bowed gracefully, and continued onward. As for Rocky, his corridor eventually narrowed to a point where it was only 1 foot high, and even more puzzling was the fact that he was knee-deep in jewels and coins.
Well, at least it's a safe place to keep money.
Safe is right, for that's exactly what it was, a wall safe belonging to Francois Villain.
I think I will count my goodies.
But instead of bringing out the crown jewels, he brought out a flying squirrel.
You!
Me!
Rocky bolted out of the room and down the hall.
Guards, arrest him!
A frantic search was launched but proved fruitless, for Rocky had ducked into a room and wisely hung out a do not disturb sign on the doorknob.
Well, monsieur, are you two a prisoner?
Turning, Rocky came face to face with the King of Applesauce Lorraine.
Your Highness.
Yes, I am your highness.
How come you're wearing a girdle?
They couldn't find an iron mask, so they put me in this.
Shh! Somebody's coming in.
That somebody was, of all people,
Bullwinkle!
Hi, Rock. Who's your friend?
That's the King of Applesauce Lorraine.
Well, if it is, then who's this?
And there, standing at Bullwinkle's side, was another man who looked like the king. We'll learn the answer in A Raw Deal, or Two Aces and a Pair of Kings.
Well, I guess that about wraps up another Rocky show.
Certainly hope you enjoyed it. I did. I always say.
Bullwinkle, time for us to go.
Already? Okay, but first, here are some of the people who made this show impossible.
That's not all.
My fingers get tired. Oop! Got away from me again.
Well, see you next time. Ready, Bullwinkle?